If you love your La Liga football, and obviously you do because you're watching, well, you're in for a treat over the next 50 minutes as we bring you the best analysis of matchday 15 in La Liga Santander. This is La Liga Preview. Madrid and Sevilla, tied on 28 points, face off in the weekend's biggest clash in the Santiago Bernabeu. Barcelona need to respond after dropping points in their last two games, and this weekend they take on Villarreal. Valencia have lost for the first time all season and are visited by Celta, buzzing after their Camp Nou heroics. And Espanyol and Girona play each other in their first ever top-flight derby in the RCD Stadium, with the newcomers doing better in the table. And here are the matches awaiting us this weekend in La Liga Santander. They kick off later on today with Alaves against Las Palmas. And then the outstanding clashes take place at 4:15 Central European time on Saturday. That's Madrid against Sevilla in the Bernabeu. At 8:45 on Saturday, Valencia Celta in Mestalla. And Sunday's key games include Betis Atletico at 16:15 hours Central European time. And the final game on Sunday, Villarreal Barcelona. Matchday 15 ends on Monday with the first ever La Liga derby between Espanyol and Girona. Welcome to La Liga Preview. I'm joined today once again by Steve Archibald. Hi there, Steve.
Hi, Simon.
What's the standout game for you this weekend?
Well, I love the... I'm really looking forward to the Madrid-Sevilla game. It promises to be a bit special.
Well, it certainly does. Problems for Zidane and Sevilla on fine form at the moment. Joining us to help with our analysis, Graham Hunter. Hi, Graham.
Good afternoon.
And what sticks out for you, apart from the goings-on in the Bernabeu?
Let's focus. Let's go tight on Ballon d'Or winner Cristiano Ronaldo. Having a tough season, not looking like a Ballon d'Or winner at all, let alone fifth time. And yet, the day before the award, completes that record of the only man ever to score in all 6 Champions League group games. The key thing now is, can he take that form, can he take that sheen of Ballon d'Or into the game that you and Steve have mentioned already at Sevilla, against Sevilla?
Well, we'll soon find out. That certainly is the standout game this weekend. Now, if you want to join us in our analysis or simply add your own comments, you can do so in 2 ways. You can send us your tweets to the hashtag La Liga Preview, or you can send messages via WhatsApp to the number 1-414-253-7799. And now, without further ado, let's get down to our analysis of the big game of the weekend. It takes place in the Santiago Bernabeu on Saturday, and it's between Real Madrid and Sevilla.
Tied on 28 points, Real Madrid and Sevilla face each other in the Bernabeu on Saturday, with both sides aiming to keep the pressure on Barcelona. Sevilla's last win in the Bernabeu came 9 years ago. Adriana and Canute got amongst the goals against the Real Madrid side featuring Cannavaro and Raúl. Sevilla come into this one with a positive momentum, and Marcucci and Berizzo seem to have found their ideal starting 11. The future for Steven Nzonzi may be far from the Sanchez Pizjuan, but in Guido Pizarro, the Andalusians have found the perfect replacement. The Argentine is on form, scores goals, and is prepared to take on the dirty work, freeing Banega to take on more creative responsibilities. Up front, Muriel is in the process of adaptation, but Nolito is hitting his stride. Sarabia is enjoying himself as he returns to his former home, while Ben Yedder is their top scorer and bursting with confidence. For Jesus Navas, it's a clash with extra motivation. If he plays, he'll equal Pablo Blanco's record of 415 official appearances with the club. Real Madrid is a team yet to hit the expected heights, unable to repeat previous season's goal-scoring feats, and with important absences at the back. Varane misses out through injury, while Ramos, Carvajal and Casemiro are suspended and won't be present. One who will make the clash is Luka Modric, who was rested from Champions League duty and can be relied on to raise his game for a clash of this calibre. Marcelo was also rested against Borussia Dortmund, and his wing will be a main channel of attack in the absence of Carvajal. Cristiano Ronaldo, having just won his 5th Ballon d'Or, it's the perfect opportunity to get back amongst the goals. Sevilla are his favourite victim. He scored 22 times against them in just 14 matches. 22 yellow cards have been brandished in the last 4 clashes between the two rivals, which shows how seriously and passionately both teams take this fixture. Sevilla are hoping to get under the skin of their hosts, who faced a big test in front of their home fans against a rival of Champions League quality in round 15's standout game.
Well, what a clash it's going to be. And for Zinedine Zidane, there are 1 or 2 problems in forming his starting 11 for the clash tomorrow. One of the key players who is not available is captain Sergio Ramos, who picked up a double yellow card, a red card, in Real Madrid's last game in San Mamés against Athletic Club. And whenever Ramos is missing, you seem, Graham Hunter, as though Real Madrid are lacking their heart in a way.
Well, first of all, he's the guy of the great escapes. And when Madrid are not on top, and at the moment they've been struggling, he is somebody who can inspire those around him, who can repel attackers and who comes up with late goals. You know, I know him well. I'm a fan of his. I've often found myself defending the red card record, because if you go to the end of the season or the end of a career and you say, what's the net benefit? His has been extraordinary, and therefore the red cards, and he's almost unique in this, are pardonable. But at a time when he didn't need to make that second challenge, at a time when, as a leader, he already knew that Casemiro and Carvajal were going to be missing, at a time when Sevilla are next up and there's this huge points gap that they can't afford to augment, this is the first time in many, many years where I've said, Sergio Ramos, what were you thinking about? This is a big letdown. A letdown not just for Real Madrid, but for the spectacle. Everybody who's tuning in around the world wants to see a man of that calibre playing. I'm sad he's not. Sevilla won't be so sad, though.
They won't, because, of course, they know all about Sergio Ramos. He moved to Real Madrid as a youngster from Sevilla, and it's always fascinating to see when he performs against his former club. A player who's come in and over the years, Steve, has learnt quite a lot from Ramos and his experience is Rafael Varane. Now, he's unavailable as well through injury. He has injury problems. It's perhaps the one thing that lets him down, because he's a top-quality central defender otherwise.
He's a good defender. I think on the ball he's a little bit suspect. He's a little bit nervous. When he gets on the ball, you can see he's looking, his body language changes a little bit, and he looks nervous to me on the ball. But as a defender, he works well with Ramos. And Ramos, as Graham was saying, will be a big miss. But I think Ramos is a loose cannon as well. And sometimes he just loses the plot when he shouldn't. So he's got to be a little bit more exemplary, I think, especially, as Graham said, when he knows that Sevilla are coming up. The club right now are not functioning in all cylinders. So there's a couple of question marks over Ramos for me.
OK, a couple of question marks. We certainly saw that loose cannon aspect of Ramos's personality in the San Mamés. But Zinedine Zidane's problems don't end there, because he's also going to be missing Dani Carvajal and Casemiro, who also picked up yellow cards in that brutal, epic clash in San Mamés. And in both of their cases, it was the 5th card of the cycle. Just exaggerating the problems for Zinedine Zidane at the back.
You know, Simon, it doesn't stop there. Let's draw the picture even more in fine detail. The reason that Pepe isn't there and able to step into the ranks is because in replanting the garden with Llorente, Ceballos, Teo and Vallejo, they said for the first time in many years at Real Madrid, let's believe in youth. Let's give them time to grow. Now, Vallejo looks as if he may not be fit either. Tejero has played first-team football, but most people around the world won't know Tejero's background. But he could have stepped in at full-back and allowed it to be absolutely sure Nacho can play in the middle. But Tejero is suspended also because of an accumulation of cards for Castilla. So in terms of the way that this is looking, unless if Vallejo is fit, then we're talking about Ashraf, Nacho, Vallejo and Marcelo. At which point you say, OK, not ideal, but doable. If Vallejo's out, then somebody has to step back and play in the middle of the fence. For example, Llorente, who's not established yet as a first-team player and whose natural position is the centre of midfield. So again, it's doable. And maybe if there's somebody who can say to young players, concentrate, do this for me. You've seen it on the training ground. I trust you. That person is Zidane because he's had a Pied Piper effect in the squad thus far. But boy, he would do without these headaches when a side of the talent of Sevilla come to town.
Well, it's a huge headache for Zinedine Zidane, perhaps one of the players he might have asked to sacrifice himself a little bit would have been Casemiro. He's not available, so we'll wait and see until tomorrow exactly how Zinedine Zidane selects his defence to face the threat of Sevilla. Zinedine Zidane was talking about Saturday's rivals in the pre-match press conference earlier today.
We are playing against a Champions League team. They are in the competition because they had such a great season. We send a big hug to Berizzo because I don't think that he will be here tomorrow.
The words of Zinedine Zidane. He's taking this game very seriously indeed, of course. And one of the reasons for that is that if we look at the last 6 times that these two clubs have faced each other in La Liga Santander, both home and away, we can see that Sevilla have got a couple of decent results there. Madrid won 4, lost 2. Those 2 defeats, both of them coming with Sevilla playing at home in the Sanchez Pizjuan, not in the Bernabeu. That was last season a 2-1 win for the Andalusians, and the season before that a 3-2 win. Apart from that, we've seen Real Madrid overcoming their visitors from the south very easily at home. And let's just show you exactly what we mean by looking at the precedents played in the Santiago Bernabeu. Now, we've stopped at the last 6 with an aggregate score of 24-6, including that 7-3 thrashing in the 2013-14 season. And you can see that Sevilla's last win in the capital of Spain came on match day 4 in the 2008-9 season. Steve, it doesn't look too promising for Sevilla if we base our ideas on those precedents, does it?
No, but every game's a different game. Seville will go in with the winning mentality that they have. They're coming off the back of some good results. Madrid have got lots of problems, and I think it's a perfect day for Seville to go to Madrid and get the 3 points. I really do. They've got some excellent players in there like Banega, who's driving the ship right now from midfield. Nolito's in form, and Navas has got pace. Ben Yedder scoring goals. So it's a day to go, get possession and attack Madrid, and I'm certain there'll be goals in the game, lots of goals.
There certainly were goals last season. It was a 4-1 win for Real Madrid. Cristiano Ronaldo getting a couple. Jovetic there with some consolation for Sevilla. That made it 2-1. But as we've seen, Graham, it's not the easiest of trips for Sevilla. Do you share Steve's view that it's a perfect opportunity for Sevilla to go to Madrid and take the 3 points?
If we're talking about perfect opportunities, it's the perfect opportunity for everybody in India, Canada, Japan, doesn't matter where you're watching, to sit back on your sofa and say, there's going to be goals. I would never say, Simon, my stats are better than your stats.
Of course.
But the last 13 games between these two sides, 63 goals. So the phrase defence is on top has never been applied to this match. And also, this is the coaching duo. Zizou mentioned Berizzo there, who's recuperating and well, and Marcucci. These are the guys who robbed Real Madrid, Zidane's Real Madrid, of the last trophy they actually lost. It was Celta under Berizzo and Marcucci who knocked them out of the cup. So it's a different set of players. But they know the formula to hurt Real Madrid, which backs Steve's theory. Sevilla must be canny, but they must be on the front foot.
Well, it's looking like a fascinating game here. One player who always has plenty to say for himself is Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, he's just equalled this week, Leo Messi with his 5th Ballon d'Or. Quite astonishing to think how many Ballons d'Or these two have won between them, and the fact that it's been over so many consecutive seasons. What a thrill, what a privilege it's really been to comment on La Liga Santander, coinciding with these two brilliant players performing week in, week out around Spain. Steve, I don't know how keen you are on these individual titles, but either way, it's a tremendous achievement from Ronaldo, isn't it?
Individual titles are fantastic, as long as it doesn't get in the way of team performance for me. Ronaldo deserves it, certainly deserves it. Messi deserves it because he worked extremely hard. And you'll have heard my comments in recent weeks regarding striker movement. Well, Ronaldo's got fantastic striker movement inside the box. He really works hard for his positions and he gets the goals that he deserves.
OK, so Cristiano Ronaldo, his 5th Ballon d'Or victory this week. He'll be wanting to celebrate that, I'm sure, in front of his fans. Let's hear what he had to say after picking up the prize, which was no great surprise, let's face it.
I don't know. I don't even thinking about that. But, for example, in subconscious, maybe it's our motivation. I'm agreed with a certain point, but my motivation, it's myself. You know, I keep fighting against myself. You want to be the best all the time. You want to win trophies. You want to win Champions League leagues and cups and Euro Cups, and you have to fighting. So maybe it's my motivation.
Ronaldo talking about his motivation there. He'll certainly be motivated at the weekend against Sevilla, who have a very notable absence. Steven Nzonzi, he's disappeared. Graham Hunter, where's he gone?
He's disappeared because he disappeared at the absolute crucial crisis time when Toto Berizzo was working out how to come back from 3-0 down against Liverpool. He made this change where he brought on Mudo Vasquez. Nzonzi didn't understand it and didn't like it, and in old parlance, took the huff. Got showered as that 3-goal comeback, that astonishing match was in train, and went off home with his wife and his kids, said to the club, I'm going home, and pretty much stomped off out of the stadium at a time when he had no playing contribution, but it wasn't liked. And Toto Berizzo and Marcucci have said, technical reasons, well, if you don't want to be here in our crisis, we probably don't want you here, and he's out of that club in January in the market.
OK, well, I'm sure there'll be many suitors lining up, interested in the possibility of signing Steven Nzonzi, but he doesn't have a future with Toto Berizzo and Marcucci in the Sanchez-Pizjuan. What about possible replacements? Do they have the players who can replace Nzonzi, Steve?
Well, they have Banega in there who's doing really well. So it's a fantastic opportunity for him to continue in there. Obviously, the January window's coming up soon, and I'm certain that a player of that quality leaving the club, if he leaves, indeed, if he does leave in January, then they've got to replace. But they've got Banega doing a great job right now. OK, and Pizarro, Graham, I know you're very impressed with him, aren't you?
Well, that's where my argument blends with Steve's, because Banega is rising to the opportunity. He's an orchestra director, but he wins the ball less than Nzonzi. Well, that's where Guido Pizarro steps in, because he's the worker, he does the dirty work, and the silk glove on top of the iron fist is Banega. Perfect partnership.
Well, it's the key game of the weekend. It kicks off at 4:15 tomorrow, Saturday, in the Santiago Bernabeu, and it's Real Madrid against Sevilla. Another fascinating clash. It's not exactly this weekend. It takes place on Monday. It's the first ever top-flight derby between the two Catalan sides, Espanyol and Girona. Well, Girona doing well on their first ever top-flight season, but for Quique Sanchez Flores' Espanyol, it's been disappointing, Steve, so far, hasn't it?
It has. I think we all expected a little bit more, and I certainly did anyway. It's a hard task for him, and to win games, as we know, you have to score goals, and not scoring nearly enough goals. This stuffy little outfit, but there's no real... And they've got good players in the middle of the park, and they've got Gerard Moreno who's scoring goals, but we need another goal scorer. They need another goal scorer, whether it's from midfield or a partner up front, and maybe change the way they're playing the game. They need another goal scorer or more goals from somewhere.
OK, they got absolutely walloped by Eibar in Ipurua last time out, and it was tremendously disappointing. Girona, on the other hand, Graham, are one of the revelation sides, I think, of the season, and I think are very unfortunate just to be a point above Espanyol in the table. They deserve more, I think.
Well, yeah, but the way to explain that, by your argument, for sure, particularly because we know their own form, because they're entertaining to watch, because they pass the ball beautifully. They look right now as if all the jigsaw pieces are fitting better than at Espanyol, but at the beginning of the season that wasn't the case. They were aesthetically nice to look at, but they weren't scoring goals. And here's the rub. This is why we all love football so much. Stuani for Espanyol, like, I've just got his figures here. His best ever, 9 in 32, 7 in 32 for Espanyol. Now that he's leading the line with Porto, I grant you, and been given good service at Girona, what has he got? He's got 8 in 12. Now just look at that as a stat. If you're a coach and saying, who are my touchstone players? Right across the field, Girona have got people, albeit they want so much more out of Muniesa, who's bought as a leader, and his injury problems have dogged him all season. Porto and Stuani are giving you numbers right now, which weren't true at the beginning of the season, which say you could have a little look at finishing top half, maybe 6th, 7th, which for Girona would be an enormous achievement.
It certainly would, and they've been one of the pleasant surprises, I think, so far this season in La Liga Santander. Machin doing a magnificent job. And that's Monday's derby. It takes place in the RCDE Stadium. Kick-off 9 o'clock Central European time, and it's a must-watch. The first ever top-flight derby between these two clubs. Another Catalan side, Football Club Barcelona, are in action this weekend, and we're going to tell you all about it after this very short break. Welcome back to La Liga Preview. Over the last few seasons, one of the most attractive clashes in La Liga have been those between Football Club Barcelona and the Yellow Submarine, Villarreal. And this weekend is going to take place in the rather awkwardly named Ceramic Stadium.
After an impeccable start to the season, Barcelona's impetus has been somewhat halted by 2 consecutive draws in La Liga. The last one came against a determined Celta side, the first team to take any points away from the Camp Nou this season. Despite the hiccup, Barcelona still blazing a trail. This weekend, with just 2 weeks to go until El Clasico with Real Madrid, they come to Villarreal determined not to drop any more points. On the downside, and far more of a blow than losing 2 points, was the injury to Samuel Umtiti. With both the Frenchman and Mascherano out of the reckoning, Piqué and Vermaelen will line up together at the heart of the Barcelona defence.
Now through and round the goalkeeper, and a golden opportunity, and Villarreal have
the leaders are up against an inconsistent Villarreal team. They're still in contention in Europe, but at the same time they've lost their last 2 games in La Liga, at home to Sevilla and away to Leganés.
On this near side, have to bring it under control and get the shot away onto his right into the corner.
2 defeats which came after letting their opponents come back from behind.
Allowed a free run on goal, plays it across, and it's 3-1. Simple enough. Where did the Villarreal?
Barcelona will be looking to secure their lead in the table, and Villarreal will want to stay in contention for a Europa League or even a Champions League place. There are more than just 3 points in play in the big game coming up this weekend in La Liga Santander.
Well, for Villarreal, this season seemed to be going along very nicely under Javi Calleja, the replacement for Fran Escribá. But very recently, the last 2 rounds of matches, they've gone into a bit of a period of, well, unsureness, really. They were ahead against Sevilla and let Sevilla come back and take the 3 points. They were stunned, Graham, by Leganés last weekend.
Yeah, they were.
Is it just a blip? Is it just a lack of concentration, or is it something worse?
Well, to the first one, no. Look, Steve will obviously, having played in high-level teams, winning and losing, will tell us about the combined factors. If you ever say in a quick soundbite, it's this, you'll be wrong, even if you get one of the elements. But is it a blip? No. Look at them being thrashed 4-0 by Getafe, much to our surprise. Look at them having to change coach mid-season. Nobody likes to do that. One of the things that's clear is Rodri. Against Sevilla, when they're playing beautifully, now they lose, so it's humiliating. There's no points. They're 2-0 up, and they're outplaying Sevilla, outrunning them, outpassing them. Fornals looks as if he's Franz Beckenbauer. Rodri goes off, and it can't be only that. Now, this is the moment where they scored to go 2-0, and at that point you think, they're playing Rolls-Royce football, but at Ferrari pace. Rodri goes off, and control goes away in the midfield. That ability to be in the right position so the attacking players can feel free to take creative chances. That, I thought, definitely changed the game against Sevilla. Against Leganés, we talked about this on Monday, they're imposing themselves, but they're not getting the goals to convert their superiority into a proper comfort zone. And Leganés, we know already, are hard-nosed, are unified, will outrun you up front when you look at, and the two, El Sar particularly at the moment, but Amrabat too. If you're not on your game, they'll pull you apart and create chances. And Leganés simply feel like they've got nothing to lose at the moment. I think they feel that they're more than halfway towards safety. And that gives you a sense of devil-may-care. That's what's happened to Villarreal. But if you had Valverde sitting here with Steve and I right now and he said, do those results mean that there's a chance you're going to go down to the Madrigal, old Madrigal, and take them apart? He'd say, forget it, chum.
OK, so there may have been a bit of a wobble for the Yellow Submarine, but they still have plenty of talent they can put out on the pitch. We've spoken about the midfield very recently on these programmes. And up front, Cedric Bakambu, Steve, is enjoying the season of his life. Really 9 goals in the first 14 games so far and looking like the real deal.
Yeah, they're brilliant numbers. And again, it comes from a lot of hard work. He puts himself around on the pitch. Non-stop movement, and he gets his reward for it, and that's what it's all about. As a striker, it doesn't come like magic. You've got to work really, really hard for it. And if you a team like Villarreal behind you who are creative and can give you the chances, and you've got that work rate in your favour, then you're going to get goals. And he's done a fantastic job so far.
OK, that's Bakambu. His strike partner, Carlos Bacca, is doubtful. He'll be facing a late fitness test before the decision is taken on whether he can play or not. Now, it's not easy for Barcelona in the Ceramic Stadium, what used to be, as Graham said, the Madrigal. Last season, they got a 1-1 draw there, but they required a last-minute equaliser from Leo Messi. So, without doubt, it's you said that Valverde is obviously taking it seriously, but we expect Barca to bounce back, don't we, after those two draws in the last 2 games?
I think that's reasonable. They rested some footballers in the midweek in the Champions League. They're definitely not going to have Titi, but at the moment, Vermaelen, as Steve predicted on Monday, is reading games well. So there are some positives. Iniesta, will he make it? We don't know yet. It's touch and go. And if he doesn't, it's Paulinho in the middle. And maybe Alcacer making a third forward or a partnership with Suarez with Messi in behind. And it's 18 times since Villarreal, 18 meetings since Villarreal won this. But in 3 of the last 5, Villarreal have caused Barca to drop points. Now, OK, the gap is what? 5 on Valencia and 8 on the pack. But they can't afford to be dropping away points again and again and again because it just gives a sniff to others. Is this a place where Barca could drop points? I think, yes, it definitely is. And they'll have to improve their game because we've been praising them for what? We praised them for the away match in Juventus. Draw. We praised them at the Mestalla. Draw again. So they're playing well, but are they putting games to bed yet? No, they're not. Is this a risk for them? I think it's a high-risk game.
A high-risk game for Valverde and his La Liga leaders, Football Club Barcelona. Mark Brown was in Barcelona earlier today. He sent us this.
Hi, Simon. Football Club Barcelona go to Villarreal this weekend, defending a 5-point lead at the top of La Liga table. And it's precisely defending that will be occupying Valverde's thoughts as he prepares his team. His big dilemma: who will accompany Piqué at the heart of that defence, with Umtiti out for up to 2 months with a hamstring problem, and his replacement Mascherano also out with hamstring problems of his own. That leaves Vermaelen, who's gone from outcast to perhaps first pick, or B-team defender David Costas. Whatever happens, this problem's not going to go away, with Valverde acknowledging this week the club might move in the January transfer market. Javier Calleja, the Villarreal manager, has tools at his disposal to take advantage of that. His star striker Bakambu has 14 goals in all competitions this season, though his partner Baka might not be back for the game this weekend. And with Villarreal with 1 win in 5 league games, if they don't win this weekend, then their fans might be forgiven for thinking maybe the Calleja bubble is slowly starting to burst. The answer to all these questions, as always, live this weekend on La Liga TV.
That from Mark Brown in Barcelona. One of the questions he mentioned there, one of the problems facing Valverde, is the injury to this man, Umtiti, who's been excellent, Steve, hasn't he? But he's out, and it's a bit of a headache for Ernesto Valverde.
Well, it's always a headache when you have to disrupt the centre of your defence, always. But I think that Vermaelen coming in, he has the experience to fit in quickly. His pace is good, and he reads the game very well. He's got good touch. And to me, in the last couple of times I've seen him, he's looked nice and sharp. It looks like his brain is clear as well. And I think he's comfortable. And that comes from being his fitness. So his fitness must be good. If his fitness is good, he's an ideal replacement for Umtiti, and I think that's the only problem that Barca will have this week. Further forward, they've got lots of options.
OK, I mean, he's played a couple of times for Barca recently, Vermaelen. He's played a couple of games with the Belgian national side. But can they trust his fitness, Graham? It's been an absolutely dreadful period he's gone through.
You're not talking about injuries in terms of fitness. You're talking about, is he match sharp, I guess. And you know, when you're a guy like him, he's a fantastic professional. I think the way he's playing now, and has been playing for the last 4 or 5 weeks, makes you wonder why he's had so few starts for Barca. Top pro, leader, and absolutely dedicated, whether in training or matches, to being fit and leading Belgium in the World Cup. As a side that has an outside chance. They're at least dark horses, packed full of talent, but not packed full of disciplined guys like him. So for anybody watching now who thinks about, can I pinch Vermaelen in the January or the summer market, he's worth it, because he's an absolute thorough professional in terms of, look at his silhouette there. Look at exactly what kind of nick he's in despite not playing much. You don't need to worry about, has he been slacking off, or has his mind wandered. He's been getting himself ready for this moment. That's the type of thing that coaches can't make you do. That comes from inside, and I admire him for it.
OK, well, if Vermaelen does get the call, we're assuming he will, he'll be playing alongside Gerard Piqué. And Piqué has been receiving 1 or 2 criticisms this season. The idea being, Steve, that he's not quite at his best. Do you share that critical point of view?
Not really. I think Piqué receives criticism on a regular basis, really. I think he's big enough and strong enough mentally to get on with it. I think he's a solid central defender. I don't see a problem with Piqué. If he can get a good man beside him, he had Umtiti, it was working well, and I'm really certain that Vermaelen must play and it'll work out well. I think that both players will have confidence in each other, which is very important, and they've got a very strong goalkeeper behind them that talks to them constantly. So I've got no worries on Piqué, absolutely not.
OK, positive news there for Ernesto Valverde as he makes the finishing touches to his preparations for what will be the final kick-off on Sunday in the Ceramic Stadium, Villarreal against Football Club Barcelona. And now let's take our regular look at the best of the rest. Eibar are back in the Coliseum where they stunned Valencia last time out, while Eibar have found the right track. I should, of course, have said Getafe are back in the Coliseum. Eibar have found the right track with 3 consecutive wins, thumping Espanyol last weekend in Uparua. And for the visitors, goalman Charles is still suspended. That's the early kick-off on Saturday, 1 o'clock Central European time, from the Alfonso Perez Coliseum. Graham, what do you expect from that early kick-off on Saturday?
Well, I'm naturally predisposed to like Eibar, because if Charles is out, and we like to say it in a Scottish way, although he's Brazilian, who's he supplanted by? Joe Jordan. Now, Steve supplanted Joe Jordan for Scotland, and Joe has got 3 himself. Eibar are a team who look as if they've lost belief in themselves. The quality has never been there because the budget's never there, because the community's so small. And right now they're going to a side in Getafe, although Aaron Barry, after his red card last week, is out. You fancy Getafe because they play quick, attractive football, and boy, oh boy, is it worth watching Angel. Angel's form is beautiful.
Well, if any of you around the world are unaware of who Joe Jordan was, let me just tell you, he was frightening. OK, next game up takes place in Riazor, Deportivo against Leganés. It's the 6:30 kickoff on Saturday. Deportivo have managed 4 points from their last 6 games, while Leganés ended their 4-match losing streak with a convincing comeback victory over Villarreal last time out. Fede Cartabia is suspended for the hosts. For Deportivo, it's just another one of those seasons, isn't it? They just can't seem to get a decent run of results.
No, they can't, but one of the things that they benefit from, and always have done at the Riazor, is that they're one of those sets of fans who I think are British in style. They will criticise you during the week, but on match day, particularly when a Madrid side, even though Leganés don't carry the same cachet as Atleti or Real Madrid, it's still the capital side coming up to this hardy little fishing town, and the Riazor will be behind their lads all the way, even though the season hasn't been inspirational. So my point of view is that although Leganés played with absolute verve in winning that game at the end of the match last week, when they looked as if they were running out of steam altogether, for me this is one where Leganés need to carry their home form to an away venue where they don't look like favourites.
OK, that's taking place in Riazor in the Benito Villamarín, Betis Atletico Madrid. And with just 2 points from their last 5 La Liga fixtures, Setien's Betis are terminal underachievers. Atletico are still one of only 2 unbeaten sides and will be looking to crank up the pressure on La Liga leaders Barcelona. This is 4:15 Central European time on Sunday. Can Quique Setien surprise Cholo Simeone, Steve?
I don't think so. Atletico Madrid really, in the last game, showed guts and experience. They went about their business in a fantastic fashion. They scored goals, and to me it looked like a great performance that the manager would have been proud of, and I think they'll take that forward, and I think they'll have a victory.
Still unbeaten, Atletico. They were eliminated from the Champions League. It looked as though that was going to happen anyway, midweek. They're going to be focusing presumably on the league, and they're looking pretty strong, creeping up on the inside.
They've done retouches that have worked. If you look at Partey, and you know how much I enjoy him, and I thought he was standing out in centre midfield, they put him at right back, and that's simply working. The reappearance of Gamero largely has inspired Griezmann, but this match at the Villamarín is going to be the first time Griezmann's missed a match through injury since he signed for Atleti. So we're looking at now a change in what's been working. The match Steve was talking about, and he loved so much, was against Real Sociedad, where although Saul was brilliant, it was Griezmann who dug them out. So this is one where, given that Betis are all over the place, and the players have had to come out and say, we support the coach, we believe in the coach. Guardado said that, Javi Garcia said that, and up top, Serra Ferrer, the man who's in charge, has said, listen, it's OK, Quique Setien is our man. Usually those are bad signs. Yeah. But this is still the side that went to Bernabeu and won earlier this season, Simon. Listen, whoever wins this, there's one to watch, because this will be a drama. It will be all-out attack by Betis. And without Griezmann, can Atleti stand it? Yeah, they probably can. Yeah. Drama guaranteed.
A fascinating prospect there. The early kick-off on Sunday sees Real Sociedad against Malaga in Anoeta. Now, it's for Eusebio's Real against the basement team, Mitchell's Malaga. Real have lost their last 3 in all competitions, but put in a superb performance last weekend even though they lost to Atletico in the Metropolitano. Malaga have improved greatly of late, but are still pointless on the road. Steve, I know you particularly were impressed by Real Sociedad, despite them losing last time.
Yeah, I thought Real Sociedad were absolutely brilliant. They got to a level of pace in the game where Atletico Madrid were really pushing them hard, and they upped a level to a level that I've never seen them play before. It was quick, it was direct, the touch was fantastic, they got the goals, they were really, really businesslike, and I think it'll be a big, big ask to Malaga to try and keep up with them tomorrow, if they can keep that same pace up in the game.
OK, and the final game for us to discuss very briefly is Levante against Athletic Club in the Ciutat de Valencia. Their point from last weekend's game against Real Madrid must surely give Ziganda's Athletic fresh confidence. Now they travel to face Levante, who, since walloping Real Sociedad in the Ciutat de Valencia back in September, have picked up just the 1 point at home. Are Athletic back on track, Graham?
Well, the European result would also suggest so. An away win that takes them from bottom of the group, halfway through matchday 5, to group winners. But then it is part of what's been happening, not just Valverde going, not just Aduriz aging, not just Ziganda taking over, but coping with European football and domestic football. So Athletic, having been away in Europe and now travelling to Valencia, is a test for vitality and mentality.
Welcome back to the final section of La Liga preview, and we've left one of the most fascinating games to the very end. It takes place in Mestalla between Valencia and Celta Vigo. Valencia, who of course were unbeaten until last weekend's surprise defeat, and they're faced by Celta Vigo making their second away trip on the trot, after having got the point from the Camp Nou with a magnificent performance. We're looking here at Getafe's victory over Valencia last weekend. A bit of a surprise because Getafe played with 10 men for over an hour. Graham, was it just a blip for Valencia?
It's a road bump that you can begin to explain by saying, OK, Guedes wasn't there. Zaza, although he's playing heroically, his job shouldn't really be running around and pressing, it should be scoring. I think most importantly at the back, Paulista has been, if not lost, he's missing Garay and Murillo next to him. Vessos does his job, but he's barely played. It's a new partnership. They looked rocky. It gave Getafe hope, but 1-0 in a game that Valencia dominated. And a game that, listen, I want to make it clear. The referee did his best, but Getafe's attitude was to bully Valencia out of that game. As such, now Steve might have a different view. Celta's the perfect home opponent for them because teams tend to come into Mestalla, sit back and say, come on. But not Enthoui's Celta. Right. They like to play. They like to open up. It's going to be an end-to-end, and that's when Valencia are at their strongest, when it's ida vuelta, when it's end-to-end.
With Celta, it was a magnificent performance in the Camp Nou, Steve. Second draw on the trot for Barca, of course, but a 2-2 draw coming back from 2-1 down. Can Celta increase the misery for Marcelino and crew?
Potentially, yes, because if they can do what they did against Barcelona, then they can certainly do it against anyone. Celta play some wonderful football, and as Graham said, that Enthoui's got them playing a way of playing the game that everybody likes to watch. He's not going to change his philosophy. They're going to go and play against Valencia and play exactly the same way. And yes, they can get the points. They've got enough quality in the team and finishing power to get them.
Tiny touch of Josebed suspended, obviously, and Vas can move back into the midfield because Johnny returns where he wasn't able to play at the Camp Nou, which gives more options to coach. OK, it's always one of the most exciting prospects every weekend, really, to watch Celta Vigo and to see them in Mestalla against Valencia. Well, highly recommendable. Let's hear the words of Juan Carlos Unzué, the coach of Celta, who was talking about the rivals that they'll be facing this weekend.
We will play against a really well-organized team, recognizable, a Marcelino team. They are always difficult teams to beat. Over the last few years, I think that Celta has been a team that makes it hard for all their rivals. I think that we deserved this right.
Well, the opening game from matchday 15 takes place in Mendizorroza. It kicks off a little bit later on today between Alavés and Unión Deportiva Las Palmas. Alavés Las Palmas, Abelardo in charge for the first time at home with Deportivo. How do you see him? He got off to a good start.
A good start? He gave Girona a 2-goal start, and then Ibai went, I tell you what, I like this new coach. Didn't like the previous fella. I'm going to pop up with a hat-trick. Ibai, one of my favourite players. When Alavés went and won at the Camp Nou a couple of seasons ago, it was his brilliance that opened it up. Does one blip, does one result mean it was all the coach's fault and Alavés are now suddenly back? I'm not certain about that, but what I did see earlier in the season, particularly when Alavés made it hugely difficult for Barcelona, was I couldn't understand, with the quality of players that they had and how robust they've been over the last couple of seasons, particularly last season, why they couldn't play football that made it difficult for teams to beat them. So I'm looking at Alavés with that, and Abelardo, a particular favourite of mine. Yeah, I think that this is something, a team we're going to need to watch now, because they're going to be harder to beat and they're going to win more often.
Well, they're facing Las Palmas. Jorge Almiron is to take over in charge of the side from the Canaries. He'll be watching from the stands as Paquito Ortiz continues in the dugout for Las Palmas. Steve, do you expect a radical change for the Canary Islanders, or do you think it's all gone a bit pear-shaped for them?
To me, it looks a bit pear-shaped, but we have to make a radical change because the players are set in their way, and the type of players that they have, they like to play a certain type of football, so it's going to be difficult. Las Palmas are a frustrating team to watch, and they play some wonderful football, but there's just a lack of some devilment in them to get to the point and get it finished. They're like Brazil, maybe not Brazilians, but it's like they're on the beach or something. They're playing away and they're loving their football, but forget they've got to win the game, and they've got to win the game.
It's a nice way of describing it. Certainly a lot of Las Palmas fans would be saying, yes, we are. We're like Brazil. Maybe over-elaborating a little bit at times. That's the kick-off later on this evening. Let's remind ourselves of the rest of the fixtures that we have ahead of us this weekend. The early game on Saturday, Getafe Eibar. That's followed by this magnificent prospect, Madrid against Sevilla in the Bernabeu. Deportivo Leganés, and the final game on Saturday, Valencia Celta in Mestalla. Sunday's football kicks off with Real Sociedad Malaga in Anoeta, then Betis Atletico, Levante Athletic Club, Villarreal Barcelona in the Ceramic Stadium, and Monday's game, Monday's 9 o'clock kickoff, the derby between Espanyol and Girona. And the way things are standing as we go into round 15, Football Club Barcelona have that 5-point lead over Valencia, 1 point further back Atletico Madrid. In fourth place Real Madrid, but they're tied on points with Sevilla, their rivals in the Bernabeu this weekend. Villarreal 7 points further back join the Andalusians in the Europa League places, whilst at the bottom still looking pretty sad and grim for Mitchell's Malaga, who are joined in the drop zone by Alavés and Unión Deportiva Las Palmas. Well, that's all we've got time for from La Liga preview this week. Once again, the time just flies by. But I would like to say thank you, Steve Archibald.
Thank you, Simon. Pleasure to be here.
We'll see you again soon, I hope. The same goes to you, Graham Hunter.
Don't miss a moment. It's going to be goals galore this weekend.
You've got to listen to Mr. Hunter. He knows what he's talking about. Goals galore this weekend in La Liga Santander. Enjoy the football, and we'll be back on Monday to tell you all about it.